On every single construction site, whether it's a massive skyscraper or just the new highway you drive on, there's an invisible thief at work. And it doesn't steal equipment or materials. It steals something way more valuable: time and efficiency. It's this silent drain that costs projects millions and fuels some of the biggest fights in the entire industry. So how do you catch a thief you can't even see? Well, that's what we're going to do. Let's investigate.
So let me ask you, what do you think is the single costliest problem on a job site? A big accident? A massive materials shortage? No. Well, those are definitely huge deals. The real answer is often something way, way harder to spot. Something we call lost productivity.
And that's exactly where our investigation is going to start. We're going to dive deep into this invisible problem, a concept that's, notoriously tricky to pin down, but sits right at the heart of some massive construction claims. Okay, first things first, we've got to get our terms straight. People throw around the words productivity and production like they're the same thing. They are not. Not at all. Production is simply what you get done. So let's say your crew lays 300 feet of pipe in a day. You hit your production goal. Awesome. But productivity, that's how efficiently you did it. What if it was supposed to take 50 labor hours, but it actually took 100? See, you got 100% of your production done, but you did it at only 50% productivity. And that gap, that's where the money just vanishes into thin air. And that's really the key here. This whole thing is like an invisible crime scene. Unlike a direct cost, like a broken piece of equipment where you get a bill for it, lost productivity doesn't show up on a single invoice. It's a slow bleed of extra labor hours, day after day. And by the time you realize how bad the damage is, the project's often over, which makes it incredibly difficult to go back and prove who's really to blame. All right, now that we understand the crime, it's time to line up the usual suspects. When productivity on a project just tanks, where do the analysts look first? Turns out there are a few common culprits that show up time and time again. And what's fascinating is just how varied these causes can be. It could be something on the management side, like supervisors being stretched way too thin, or different trades literally tripping over each other because their work wasn't coordinated. It could be disruptions right there on the site, constant design changes forcing crews to tear out and redo work. Or it could be the human element, pushing crews into excessive overtime. Studies consistently show that just leads to fatigue, more mistakes, and ultimately, efficiency goes right out the window. Any one of these can be the killer, but a lot of the time, it's a bunch of them working together. But, identifying a suspect is one thing. Actually proving it is a whole other ballgame. In the world of construction claims, a contractor can't just walk in and say, hey, the owner's changes slowed us down, so pay up. No, they have to meet a very, very high burden of proof. And this just perfectly illustrates the challenge. A contractor has to prove all 5 of these points. They have to show the disruption was unforeseeable and totally out of their hands, that the owner was responsible, that the contract even lets them ask for money, and this is the big one, they have to draw a direct, undeniable line from that event to the lost hours. It's a really tough case to make. So how in the world do you prove something that's so elusive? Well, this is where the claims analysts break out their forensic toolkit. They use specific, recognized methods to actually quantify that lost time and put a real dollar value on it. But, and this is a big but, not all methods are created equal. Just like in a courtroom, some evidence is considered far more credible than others. And courts and arbitrators have a very clear preference for analysis that's really grounded in the project's own unique reality. This table just lays it out perfectly. At the very top, the most reliable methods are project-specific studies. That means you're using direct evidence from the actual project in question. Below that, it's reliable to compare to similar projects. But as you go down the list to things like general industry data or that cost basis method at the bottom, the credibility just drops off. Courts always prefer data from the scene of the crime, so to speak. Now, the absolute gold standard, the DNA evidence of a productivity claim, is the measured mile analysis. It's so elegant in its simplicity. You find a period on the project where work was humming along normally. No problems. That's your unimpacted mile. You measure the productivity there. Then you compare it to the productivity during the period when things went wrong, the impacted mile. The difference? That's your quantifiable loss. It is so powerful because you're comparing the project to itself, which just eliminates all those arguments about whether the original estimate was realistic to begin with. Now, compare that to the method of last resort, the total labor cost method.
It seems simple on the surface, right? You just subtract what you were paid from what you spent. But look at the reality. Courts are deeply, deeply skeptical of this. To use it, you have to prove it was impossible to calculate damages any other way, that your original bid was reasonable, that your actual costs were reasonable, and that you weren't responsible for any of the extra cost. It's an incredibly high bar to clear. So, after sifting through all the evidence, identifying all the suspects, examining all the forensic methods, what's the single most important factor that decides these cases? What's the one thing that separates a successful claim from a failed one? Here it is. The verdict is in, and it's all about the evidence. Contemporaneous records. We're talking daily reports, schedules, photos, cost tracking, all the documentation that was created as the work was happening. Without good records, a contractor is just guessing. And in the contentious world of construction claims, a guess is never, ever good enough. So, here's a final thought I want to leave you with. Next time you look at a skyline, a bridge, or a brand new stadium, think about the hidden story there. These structures aren't just built with steel and concrete. They're shaped by these invisible battles over time, money, and efficiency. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much more could we build, and how much faster, if we could finally catch construction's invisible thief?